Hello and welcome to Eve May's Poetry Corner. Wow, what a week it's been, eh? The world watched a black man's life being taken away from him under the knee of, or I should say by the knee of a policeman, who by the way is paid to serve and protect. And the world is angry and the world is upset. And I am in despair, but I am so happy to see that the world sees and is saying, this is not right. So today I thought I would read something that has historical context. It's a factual, historic account of a group of people in Jamaica called the Maroons. And their history is a lot longer than this, but this is a whirlwind account of who they were, how they operated, and their successes and failures. So I hope you enjoy listening to these wonderful people and how they coped with slavery on the island of Jamaica. Are you sitting comfortably? Jamaican Maroons descend from Africans who escaped from slavery on the island and established free communities in the mountainous interior, primarily in the eastern parishes. These escaped Africans were originally enslaved during Spanish rule over Jamaica, which was between 1493 and 1656. They, in fact, may have been the first people to develop refugee communities. They fought, destroyed, and created much havoc with plantation owners. The British fought the Spanish and took over Jamaica in 1655. Between 1673 and 1690, there were several major slave uprisings, mainly prompted by newly arrived, highly militarized groups from the Cape Coast and the Ashanti Empire. On the 31st of July 1690, a rebellion involving 500 slaves from the Sutton estate in the parish of Clarendon led to the formation of Jamaica's most stable and best organised Maroon group. Although some were killed, recaptured or surrendered, which means they went back into slavery, more than 200, including women and children, remained free after the rebellion ended. They established an Ashanti-style community based in the western parts of the Cockpit country, high up in the Blue Mountains. The most famous ruler of the Western Maroons was Cudjo in Trelawney. They allowed newcomers to join only after they had satisfied a strict probationary period. By about 1720, a stronger windward community had developed around the culturally Africanized group of three villages known as Nanny Town, under the spiritual leadership of Queen Nanny. She was an Ashanti woman. She was known for her exceptional leadership skills, especially in guerrilla warfare, which is what the Maroons are known for. She used this to really good effect during the First Maroon War. One particular tactic the Jamaican Maroons were great at and used a lot involved the art of camouflage using plants. Have we seen that somewhere before? Or I should say since. This made it virtually impossible for the British to find them and was the cause of much angst. Queen Nanny, also known as Granny Nanny, died somewhere in the 1750s. Her remains are reputedly buried at Bump Grave, which is in Moortown, the main town of the Windward. She is the only woman honoured as one of Jamaica's national heroes and has been immortalised in songs and legends. Now, the First Maroon War was held between 1728 and 1739. Disturbed by plantation raiding, the colonial authorities of Jamaica wanted to eradicate the Maroon communities in order to promote, of course, British settlement. Their strategy, beginning in the 1730s, was to break off lines of communication between the Windward and Leeward Maroons, then first pick off the less organised Windward Maroons. Now, in practice, this wasn't going to work as well as they thought, because the Maroon troops' command of the territory and skill in guerrilla warfare gave them a strong advantage over colonial forces. After much fighting, the British took and destroyed Nannytown in 1734, but most of the Windward Maroons simply dispersed and formed new settlements. At this point, however, fighting shifted to Leeward, where the British troops had limited success against the well-trained and organised forces of Cudjoe. By the mid-1730s, warfare was proving costly to the British and was turning into an ongoing stalemate. Cudjoe rejected suggestions of a treaty in 1734 and 1736, but by 1738 he agreed to parley with John Guthrie. This local planter and militia officer was known by and respected, for some bizarre reason, by the Maroons. In 1739, the treaty signed under the then British governor Edward Trelawney granted Cudjoe's Maroons 1,500 acres of land between their strongholds of Trelawney and Accompong in the cockpits, and a certain amount of political autonomy and economic freedoms, in return for which the Maroons were to provide military support in case of invasion or rebellion, and to return runaway slaves in exchange for a bounty of $2 each. This last clause in the treaty caused tensions between the Maroons and the enslaved black population, although from time to time, runaways from the plantations still found their way into Maroon settlements. In addition, a British superintendent was assigned to live in each Maroon town. In 1740, similar treaties were signed by Quayle and Nanny, major leaders of the Windward Maroons. The Windward Maroons were originally located at Crawfordstown and the new Nannytown, now called Moortown. In all, about 600 Maroons came to terms with the British authorities through these two treaties. Not all Maroons, however, accepted the treaties. Rebellions occurred in Maroon communities in the years that followed. After the treaties, the white superintendents appointed by the governors eventually took control of the Maroon towns. Despite this, the Maroon population grew from 664 in 1739 to over 1,200 in 1796. Even with white superintendents living in close proximity with them, the Maroons used stealth and continued to fight and pillage the plantations. The inhabitants of Accompong and Moortowns share practices and traditions drawn from their Akan and Ashanti ancestors. Today, there are 4 official settlements across the island. They are the closest you will get to a pure African race in the Caribbean. When Jamaica gained independence from the British in 1962, the government of the day recognized the political and cultural rights of the Maroons, and a later government acknowledged and solidified these rights in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, including the right to maintain and strengthen their distinct political, legal, economic, social, and cultural institutions. It also acknowledged the right for self-government in matters relating to local affairs. In 2005, the music of the Moortown Maroons was declared by UNESCO as a masterpiece of the oral and intangible heritage of humanity. To this day, It is conditional that no one can live in Maroon territory without first getting permission from the community. Isn't that wonderful? Now, there are other accounts just like this all over the Caribbean, Haiti, and some of the other islands. I would urge you to research and gain the knowledge for yourself. So, until next time, peace.